So last year when Canon introduced the R6 Mark III and the C50, the comparison was actually really easy. Are you looking for a hybrid camera with an EVF, IBIS, and you don't need really long record times? Well, the R6 Mark III was the way to go. But if you needed super long professional recording with a pro interface and you're willing to forego the EVF and IBIS for that, well, the C50 is the camera for you. But now Canon has introduced the R6 V, and this might be the perfect blend of those two cameras for videographers. If you don't need an EVF or a mechanical shutter. It's actually really complicated, so why don't you come with me? I'm Jordan Drake, this is PetaPixel. We're gonna try and figure this thing out together. So if you're primarily a videographer, you might sometimes listen to Chris and I talk about KEH and think, well, that's for those photo people, that doesn't apply to me, but you could not be further from the truth because KEH also has an expansive lineup of hybrid cameras available from the major brands like Nikon, Canon, Panasonic. They're all producing some excellent video cameras and you can find them at keh.com. And if you've already got a camera you love, well, you can also grab a huge variety of cinema lenses from keh.com. And if you grab any of their pre-owned equipment, don't worry because you've got a generous return time on it as well as a 180-day warranty on the vast majority of their expansive library. So take it from a videographer. keh.com is a great place to check out if you're looking for pre-owned gear. That's why they're PetaPixel's official pre-owned camera gear partner. So Canon sent us a pre-production R6 V, which Chris is filming me in right now in the 4K fine recording mode, but due to the early nature of this camera, we can't really do any kind of extensive testing on it. That being said, the 32.5 megapixel sensor in this is already a known commodity. We've seen it in the C50 and the R6 III. The other thing is this includes the 20 to 50 f4 power zoom lens, which I'm extremely excited about. I'm not going to talk about that too much today because we're going to have a dedicated video coming out just a little bit later on it. So the design of this camera is kind of a lumpy mishmash of an R6 III or an R50V, a Canon C50, all kind of combined together. It's a little shorter than the R6 III because it doesn't have the EVF and that little hump on top of it. That being said, it does have a wider base that I actually find really comfortable when I'm hand holding this camera. Like most of Canon's professional bodies, I love that this has a triple control dial setup, though interestingly, the back control dial is kind of like a Sony in that it also has a four-way joypad on it, giving you access to zebra, peaking, audio levels, and AF focus point selection. The rest of the body is covered in very well laid out custom buttons, and I like that it shows you their function both in capture and in playback. The majority of the back of the camera is taken up with a fairly unimpressive 3-inch 1.62 million dot LCD panel on this. And I would really like to see an update on this, something like what Nikon did with their ZR, where they gave you a big and very sharp LCD, because this is the only way to monitor your footage without attaching an external display to it. What I do like though is that this is a fully articulating display, and they've actually spaced it out far enough from the body on the side that when you rotate it, it's not going to bump up on your audio cables like so many other cameras will. On top of this camera, we find Canon's multifunction hot shoe. It's important to point out, unlike the C50, this does not include Canon's XLR attachment for attaching professional microphones to it. As well up here, you can see around the record button or shutter button, we have a zoom rocker. So if you're using a standard lens, this will give you access to a very smooth digital zoom, or if you're using a power zoom lens, like the new kit lens, the 20 to 50, this will optically zoom your lens. We also find the mode dial on top of the camera, though oddly, for a video-centric camera, this doesn't have a lock on it, so I look forward to many opportunities in the future to pull this camera out of my bag, find out I'm in aperture priority mode and my shutter speeds are all screwed up. On one side of the camera here, we have all of our ports. So you've got the standard things like a microphone jack, headphone jack, USB-C for transfer and charging, and even though this is a small body, thankfully we have a full-size HDMI port on this. As well on the side, you can see the vent for active cooling on this camera. Jumping over to the other side of the camera, here we have a CF Express Type B, as well as an SD card slot. Now you can use the SD card for full backup or primary recording on any of the lower data rate recording modes. If you jump over to RAW, it'll actually give you access to proxy files and then recording your primary clip to the CF Express card slot. You'll also find that there's a 1/4-20 screw on the side here for vertical oriented shooting. It's a feature I loved on the R50V, but remember, the battery and card doors were on the bottom of that camera, so this port didn't get in the way of anything. I find it incredibly frustrating that we've got a screw here, but once you attach a quick release plate, you're not going to be able to access those memory card slots. It's just, let me be honest, a dumb design. On the bottom of the camera, we're going to find the other quarter 20, the air intake vent, and the battery door. Now, this has a very familiar form factor to a lot of the other Canon batteries. This is the LPE6P format. Now, you can use some of the older formats in this, but it is going to restrict some of the camera's functionality, so I would really recommend investing in a bunch of the brand new batteries.
Hey guys, it's me, Chris Nichols, and no, I'm not going to do any of the video talk, but I am shooting Jordan today on this bright, stark, sunny day, so we've brought this out. This is the Westcott Illuminator 5-in-1 reflector. This happens to be the 30-inch size. You can see there, giving me a nice fill. Now, what's really cool about this reflector, not only are they super handy to have, but I like the gripped handles on here. Makes it easy to fold it up, but also just to hold one-handed. There's lots of times where I'm rolling on Jordan, but I still want to provide light, but see what's going on the camera, and this lets me extend my grip and do both. It's really nice. Now this is a 5-in-1, so I'm going to get this bright, stark silver, useful white. There's also a soft gold, but it's very soft, which I like, just a hint of warmth, as well as black to create negative fill, and I can take all that off and use this as a diffusion panel. Just a really useful tool. You should definitely check these out. Go to fjwestcott.com and you can see all the sizes and options they have available, or just click the link in the description below to find the piece that we're using today. So we really love having these. They're super useful. Westcott makes good gear. That's why they're PetaPixel's preferred lighting gear partner. And here, I'll put it away. Ugh, look how terrible that looks. Yeah, back to Jordan looking pretty.
All right, let's talk about the sensor in this. It is the now familiar 32.5 megapixel sensor we've seen before in the C50 and the R6 III, and it is a very capable video sensor. This camera is going to allow you to record oversampled 4K footage up to 60 frames per second, and for slow motion, it does drop down to subsampling, but you can do 4K 120p or even 2K at 180p for extreme slow motion effects. And also very interestingly, this will allow you to do 7K open gate recording utilizing the entire sensor area up to 30 frames per second. Despite the conventional nature of this sensor, it really holds its own even against some of the new partially stacked competition that we're seeing out there. However, there is one real drawback compared to the R6 III, and that's that if you want to do photography, there's no mechanical shutter here. It is electronic shutter only, so that really rules this camera out if you want to use it for fast action or shooting in a bunch of artificial light. As mentioned earlier, this camera does have an active cooling system, though not one as powerful as what we see in the C50 from the Cinema series. And because this is a pre-production camera, we can't test overheating on it, though thankfully Canon was able to give us some information on what we can expect for the record times on this camera. So with the R6 III, it was generally very good, but we did run into some issues when we were in room temperature recording 4K 60p and the 7K open gate recording. In both of those, we were getting around a half hour of record time. But looking at what Canon's saying we should see here, if we're shooting in room temperature, we should be able to record unlimited recording in the 7K open gate mode, and the 4K 60p oversampled should be able to run for 2 hours, which is more than I would ever use. So if you're planning to use this camera for things like live music or interviews, rest assured it's going to be much more performant than the R6 III. The R6 V offers a really nice complement of assist tools when you're recording video. You get things like false color, waveform, and histogram as an option while you're using this. Now, this uses the classic Canon mirrorless menus, unlike the C50, which would use the mirrorless menus when you're shooting stills, and then the professional video interface when you were shooting video. And I think that makes a lot of sense if you're coming from more of a cinema background. However, it's worth pointing out the C50 had an option where you could record simultaneous horizontal and vertical clips from the open gate recording area, which is sadly missing in this. And that's a real shame because this is a feature that would be fantastic for content creators. It's a real shame not to see it here. One feature that made me really prefer the R6 III over the C50 is the inclusion of IBIS, or in-body image stabilization, which thankfully is included in the R6 V here. And you can see it does a nice job of just kind of taking out the micro jitters. And if you want to do a static shot, it really helps, especially if you're shooting on a monopod. I wouldn't say the performance is quite as good as, say, Panasonic's full-frame cameras, but it's still really nice to have. For even more stability, you can turn on digital IS modes. Here is the strongest, which is their enhanced digital IS. And that does definitely smooth out the footage, but as you can see, there's a big crop. And of course, there's always going to be a heavy image quality penalty when we crop in this much to our frame. Okay, so here's the thing. I personally keep getting hung up on the lack of an electronic viewfinder on the R6 V, but it seems like the majority of videographers just do not care. I mean, the Sony FX3 has been a massive success, and it looks like the Nikon ZR is going to follow in their footsteps. Those both share the lack of electronic viewfinder that we see here. And remember, the Canon is bringing some interesting stuff to the table not offered by those cameras, like open gate recording and a kit lens with a power zoom functionality. But I can see how it could be really confusing for someone looking for a full-frame Canon camera to record video when you're looking at the R6 III, the R6 V, and the Canon C50, all offering their own advantages and trade-offs. Sure, the R6 V is $300 less expensive than the R6 III right now, but that shouldn't be the primary thing that makes your decision for you. Rather consider, is this a camera that you're going to regularly use for photography, and do you really appreciate having an EVF? If you don't like those, then obviously the R6 V is going to be the better choice. This camera is also going to make the C50 a much more niche proposition, specifically for video professionals who require things like time code, anamorphic support, and the absolute ultimate thermal performance. That means for the vast majority of video shooters, either the R6 III or the R6 V are going to be the better choice. So after considering everything that the R6 V can do, I do think it does make sense in the Canon lineup, and it's going to make a lot of videographers very happy. But if you don't mind, I'm just going to be over doing my job with an R6 III, happily gazing through that electronic viewfinder and being able to see what the hell I'm doing in bright light. All right, I think we did it. Hopefully I have qualified you for what camera might be the right choice. And if you like hearing us talk about the cameras, well, you got to check out the PetaPixel podcast. You can listen to it on all your favorite podcasting apps, or you can watch our faces as we talk right here on this YouTube channel. As well, if you really want to support the work we do, you should look into a PetaPixel membership. Look at all of these great perks that come along with membership. It's only $3 a month or $30 for the whole year, and it really helps us do the big in-depth projects that we love doing here at PetaPixel. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you all soon with another episode.